Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Melissa and I'm the owner of seasonandserveblog.com. Fall is a very special time for mushroom lovers here on Vancouver Island because so many different varieties of mushrooms come into season. So in this video I am taking some of my favorite seasonal mushrooms and making them into this beautiful West Coast Mushroom Galette. Now this recipe is a little bit complex because I am making the pie dough and my ricotta cheese from scratch, but if you want to take some shortcuts, you can totally buy those store-bought and still make this recipe. And of course, if you enjoyed today's video, please hit the like button below as well as the red subscribe button to see more delicious recipe videos just like this one. And with all that said, let's get into today's video. We'll begin by making our homemade ricotta cheese, and if you haven't made ricotta cheese from scratch before, it is a lot easier than you may think. To begin, we'll heat the milk in a large pot over medium-high heat, and you want to stir the milk often using a wooden spoon until bubbles form on the surface and steam is coming off the top of the milk. Next, you want to add some lemon juice as well as some salt, and then give everything a gentle mix through. And soon enough, you'll be able to see the cheese separate, and the cheese will float on top of the yellow whey liquid below. And once you see this begin to happen, turn off the heat and then let it sit for about 3 to 5 minutes to let the cheese fully separate. And in just a few minutes, the cheese should congeal on the top like this, and then we're ready to strain. Scoop the ricotta cheese into a strainer lined with 2 layers of cheesecloth, and I like to initially kind of scoop it at first, and then if there's any little particles left in the pot, I will just dump the entire contents of the pot over top. Let the cheese sit for a few minutes to let most of the whey drain away, and then tie up the cheesecloth into a little bundle. At this point, when you lift the cheese up, you'll still see some whey draining out, and you really want to get most of that moisture out so that doesn't make our pastry crust soggy. So I like to hang up the bundle of cheese and let it drain naturally for about half an hour, or until the whey stops dripping out. While the cheese is draining, we'll make our pie dough. So in a large bowl, add some flour, sugar, salt, and then our chopped rosemary and thyme, and then mix it all together to combine. Next, add some cold cube butter into the flour mixture and use your hands or a pastry cutter to cut the butter into the flour until small pea-sized lumps form. To bring the dough together, we're adding some lemon juice and some cold water, and then we're just going to use our hands to mix the dough together. It'll kind of be a little bit shaggy at first, but then once it gets to that point, turn it out onto a clean work surface and then knead the dough until it comes together into a ball. And finally, form the dough into a round disc, and you can wrap it in plastic wrap or use a sustainable beeswax wrapper like I'm using here from Abigo. And then you're just going to place it in the refrigerator and let it rest for 30 minutes. Next, we'll prepare our mushroom filling, and in this filling I'm using a combination of wild mushrooms and also commercially grown mushrooms. But if you want to go out and forage for mushrooms yourself, you can totally use this with all wild mushrooms. And in my mixture today, I'm using some oyster mushrooms, some chanterelles, and cremini mushrooms. And when you're buying mushrooms from the store or you're foraging them, they can sometimes be pretty dirty, so you want to clean them. And you never want to rinse them underwater. You want to just take a little brush like this, or you can use like an old toothbrush, anything like that, and just gently wipe the dirt off of the mushroom. So here I'm just showing you how I'm cleaning my mushrooms, and I'm making sure to clean the top part as well as the stem, as that can be pretty dirty as well. And once your mushrooms are cleaned, we're going to go ahead and slice them. And for the chanterelles, I just like to cut them in half since they are relatively small to medium sized. For oyster mushrooms, I like to chop off the root and then just kind of tear the oyster mushrooms apart into smaller pieces. And then for the cremini mushrooms, I'm just going to slice them into 1/2 centimeter thick slices, kind of like the size if you were putting mushrooms onto a pizza. And don't forget, all the full measurements and directions can be found at my blog, and I will leave the recipe link in the description box below. To give some extra flavor to the mushroom, I'm going to chop up some garlic really finely, and I'm also going to use a shallot and slice it up nice and thinly. Also, I'm going to add some fresh thyme leaves as well to enhance the flavor from the pie dough. And once you have all the ingredients for the mushroom filling prepared, set them aside, and then we'll head over to cook our filling. To cook our mushrooms, I am adding some olive oil to a large pan over medium-high heat, and I'm going to add my mushrooms one variety at a time because each variety has a different cooking rate. So first I'm cooking my cremini mushrooms, and I'm just adding them to a pan in one even layer, and I'm cooking them just until they begin to start turning golden brown. You don't want to cook them until they're completely dried up, or else when you bake the galette in the oven, the end result will be really dry mushroom, and that's not fun. So you want to just cook them until they turn golden brown and they still have some moisture in them. Then I'm just repeating the process by adding some oil, followed by my oyster mushrooms and my chanterelles. Then to enhance the flavor of the mushrooms, I am adding some butter to my pan, followed by the shallots that we chopped up earlier, as well as the garlic and the thyme. And I'm just stir frying this until the shallots become translucent and the garlic gets nice and fragrant. So this should only take about 30 seconds after you add your garlic and your thyme. Then once that's added, you want to add back all of your mushrooms at once and then mix it together to combine. Now I'm adding some soy sauce as well to give some extra umami flavor, and I'm doing this instead of salt. And I didn't get this on camera, but I also added some black pepper and some honey as well, just to round out all the flavors of the mushrooms. And then once the mixture is combined, set it aside and let it cool completely. Next, we'll work on assembling and baking our galette. So before you start rolling out your dough, you want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And here I'm just rolling out my dough. I took it out of the fridge, let it sit for about 10 minutes to kind of soften up, and I'm just rolling it out with a rolling pin and lots of flour. And when you roll out your dough, you want to make sure it rolls into a nice round shape so that you can make the round galette. Once your dough is into a circle shape, just roll it up and around a rolling pin to make it easier to transfer to a parchment-lined baking sheet. And you definitely want to make sure that you transfer it to a parchment-lined baking sheet before you add all your fillings, because it is really difficult to move once you have all the ricotta and the mushroom filling on it. So make sure you do this step. Next, you want to add your ricotta cheese into the center of the galette, and it should be pretty dry, so you may need to crumble it, but that's okay. You just want to crumble it over and then push it down with the back of a spoon. Next, you want to add your mushrooms on top, and I like to kind of mound them up in the center and make it taller there, and then sort of let it sort of taper off near the edges. So this will give you like a nice dome sort of shape for your galette. And then to fold up the galette to make sure that none of the filling comes out, you just want to pull the outside pieces of dough up into the middle. You do want to make sure that you leave the center open, since it gives it a really nice presentation. And then to give the crust a nice beautiful golden color, I'm just brushing it with some egg wash, and this is just 1 egg mixed with a bit of milk. And I'm just brushing that all over the outside of the galette where the dough is. Now that the galette's assembled, it's ready to bake. So place the galette into the center of the oven and bake it for about 40 minutes. I like to turn it halfway through cooking just so that the crust gets evenly brown, but it should take about 40 minutes to fully cook. Then once it's done, it should be nice and golden brown and look just like this. Let the galette cool for about 10 minutes before transferring to a serving plate and finishing it off with a garnish of fresh thyme leaves. Serve this delicious West Coast Mushroom Galette warm and enjoy. And that is it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button below and also hit that red subscribe button, plus the notification bell to get notified every time I post a brand new video. For some more fall recipe inspiration, head over to my Instagram and give me a follow there. And also make sure you check out my blog to get this full West Coast Mushroom Galette recipe, plus other amazing fall recipes. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.